Greetings. My name is Dr. Christopher C. York. I am a philosophy instructor at Langara College. My research specialty is the philosophy of sports and games, and I'm the founder of the Arena Gauntlet League. Welcome to Leagues Ahead, a tournament design vodcast that looks to future leagues with an intention to analyze, to deconstruct, to add on to where we've been, and to boldly go where tournament design has not ever gone before. My special guest today is League Committee member Jack Hudson, our newest addition to the team, and he's going to tell us all about Modern Horizons 3, the tournament rules, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Welcome, Jack.
Hey Chris, thanks for having me.
It's great to see you. This is the first time, really, that we've had a chance to sit down and chew the fat. So I'm excited to pick your brains and to see how your experience is going so far and what you think about MH3.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it.
All right. So let's start with the elephant in the room. I'm not a big fan of monoset leagues. I didn't make any bones about it. I posted about it in the league crafting channel. Johnny's a big fan. There are other people who are big fans of it. We kept Kanza Tarkir a monoset league because the argument was that it couldn't really survive on its own out in the wild against better sets. My counter argument is that if a set's that weak, it shouldn't be protected. We ought to just make the best league we can, right? So if KTK sucks, let's not make it worse by having it be a monoset league. Let's add in different kinds of spices and brew with the set. See what we can get going. What's your stance on monoset leagues?
Yeah, I'm sure as most people know that when we run a monoset league, we're really putting faith in the set itself, that it's going to be an interesting and fun play experience for 6 weeks. With the two monoset leagues I've participated in, I was here for Lord of the Rings and I was here for Khans of Tarkir. And those are kind of the two most recent ones that we were basing our experience on, but those leagues weren't, definitely weren't top notch by any stretch of the imagination. But I'd like to believe that's because of the sets themselves. As many people know, I am an avid Lord of the Rings hater. I think that sounds terrible. And Khans of Tarkir is boomer magic, put it lightly. But yeah, not my favorite sets.
Yeah.
But with the way Modern Horizons is looking, I do think we can put our faith in the set that it's going to make a very interesting league just based on the complexity of the cards.
Right. I suppose that there are a few things that we can talk about that makes MH3 kind of special in that regard. Like some of the mechanics are fairly parasitic, right? So like colorless mana, Eldrazi matters, lots of tribal themes. Those elements lend themselves well to a monoculture league, I suppose, more so than other kinds of mechanics. So there's that argument going for it. I still probably am in the camp of wanting to see more spice and more weird crossover cards, but there'll be a time for that in the future. I'm assuming that we'll use MH3 packs in other leagues, and we'll get to see what these cards do in combination with others in due course. I think that I'm with you about Lord of the Rings. Even though it was based on Plane Chase, I think that the argument for... Okay, so the Plane Chase mechanic kind of kept things from feeling too repetitive, which I think is good. And it fit that world. And I think that in a way, I was okay with the velvet rope being put around the set and saying only Lord of the Rings packs here because it was a different IP. Maybe I'm a little too precious about this, but I feel like when Magic goes off-brand, mixing those cards with sort of like regular fantasy cards always feels a bit jarring to me. I don't like alchemy. I'm not a big fan, even of Dungeons and Dragons, which is fairly harmless in the grand scheme of things. So maybe I'm a fan of purity too, but in a different direction. I'm flavor purity rather than set purity. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's the difference, I guess.
I think I do. I definitely agree with you that it was the right decision to run Lord of the Rings mono set if for flavor reasons and nothing else. I agree with you that it would feel weird for me to play, classic Magic characters against like Galadriel and Sauron, and it would feel weird. And on top of that, I'm not sure that it would really even improve the experience of Lord of the Rings. Um, and in regards to that league, I think the committee did a great job with the mechanics, keeping it fresh because I can. I'd wager my entire life savings that about 80% of the league would be black red after week two. Um, and the mechanics, the steps from week to week were great. I think it was a nice way to keep things shaken up, but there's only so much you can do with a set like that.
Okay, so but for MH3, right, we don't even have any steps. We're keeping it as simple can be, right? So in other words, there's only MH3 in the starting pool, only MH3 for punishment packs, and only MH3 in the mega draft, right? It's all the way down the line. There really is no autonomy with regards to what kind of packs players can open at any stage in the game. So in a
That's
way,
right.
that's, I mean, I've heard it described by Adam, and I protested loudly at this. He calls this classic league, but even in classic league, right? So in the other two vanilla leagues I've discussed in my Leagues Behind podcast, which is Ikoria and MH21, for punchbacks you could still open anything on Arena, right? I mean, it was unrestricted in that regard. So punchbacks were open even though you started with six packs of one set. You could add any kind of spice that you liked. So this really is as far as it goes down the slider towards design simplicity, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And in regards to that too, I think that it will be a nice change of pace. We've had a lot of players, not even necessarily complaining, but it's been even for myself. The market in OTJ has been a wild ride, and I'm an experienced player. I've played a long time. I know all the sets, and I can't imagine what it's like for someone who started a year ago.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I think even if it's a little dull, it will be a nice change of pace to kind of slow down after the craziness of our last couple of leagues and just have a nice reset.
yeah. I think not only player fatigue has to be taken into account, but also like league committee fatigue. Like you guys have been running pretty hard, right? So like the MKM league with like so many requirements to engage with the community at every step along the way, and OTJ not being much less onerous in that respect means that I think everybody could use a little break. And it's summer's here. Let's all go touch some grass and play a league that's not going to demand uh, every waking moment of our lives.
Yeah, and I wasn't even on the team for murders, but I can only imagine how much work the team put into running Alchemist and the puzzles and all that. And yeah, like you said, Thunder Junction was definitely a big time investment by us as well. Um, so yeah, from our end, it's obviously I signed up for this. I know what I got myself into, but it's nice to have a chill league every once in a while.
Yeah, and you've really been putting your shoulder to the wheel, right? So since you came in, you've taken on a lot of Ryan's responsibilities and some additional ones too. So I think I speak for everybody on the league committee. I think who would say that you've done a great job. You've adapted quickly to the demands, and I hope your experience so far has been more positive than negative. Maybe you can confirm or deny.
Yeah, yeah, it's been great. I mean, I love the community. It's been great being able to give back and put my head into design. It's been a lot of fun too. Yeah, it's been a good time.
Let's talk about that. So I think that since we have a vanilla league here, you and I can kind of set the tone for what Leagues Ahead is supposed to be, right? So first of all, I guess we need to be specific about what we're doing. We are definitely exploring tournament design as a sort of unique strand of design, right? As opposed to game design, we have a game already. It's called Magic the Gathering. And so what we're doing is changing the way that we approach Magic through altering and modifying the rules of the tournament. So I think that one of our design constraints that maybe we haven't really spoke about explicitly, but we can discuss now, is that our tournament designs ideally shouldn't impinge on the game design of Magic. Do you think that's a good rule to live by?
Yeah, at the end of the day, right, no matter how many rules we shove into our tournaments, we're still playing Magic. And however we want to take the direction of the league, whatever we want to do with mechanics, and um, it is still Magic at the end of the day. And so our goal as league designers really should be to enhance the game of Magic, not to change it in a drastic way.
Right. I mean, there are stipulations which arguably change some of the fundamental rules, but the gameplay is still recognizably Magic. And no, obviously, I've sort of floated the idea of an omniscience league. No, nobody's biting on that, obviously. So, I think that the people have spoken. They want Magic to be Magic, but I also think that they're a fan of what we do. In that, I don't think anyone is designing tournaments like this currently. At least I haven't heard of any. And I mean, we just came out of OTJ, but it really is the Wild West of tournament design. I think with the Arena Gauntlet League.
Yeah, I mean, we really are in a unique position where, due to the online nature of the tournament and kind of our structure, that we can implement a lot of things that an in-person tournament wouldn't be able to do. And it's cool in that regard, getting to kind of push the boundaries of tournament design and experiment with things that just are not possible in paper.
Let's talk about, I guess, the formula of Gauntlet League then, and we'll talk about like so that this MH3 rule set leans heavily on the Colonel's secret recipe, right? Which is the sort of 5 steps of League, right? Which is we generate you a virtual sealed pool. That's step 1. Step 2, you make a 60-card deck with it. Step 3, you play a 3-game match against an opponent. A, if you win, you report the match, and this generates a punishment pack for the loser. Or B, if you lose, add your punishment pack to your pool and rebuild. Step 4, you play 5 matches a week against different opponents. And step 5, you keep playing until A, you make the top 8 Mega Draft Finals at the end of Week 6 play, or B, you reach your 11th loss and are eliminated. These are the 5 rules that have probably appeared on the most rule sets, over the last, 4 years online and 5 or 6 before that in person. So I'm wondering, like, if you think about that sort of 5-step formula, could you see us changing any one of those? And if so, which one would you change in the future?
Yeah, there's definitely room to tweak the formula. It's kind of rooted in tradition and it's been working so far, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't just blindly accept it. If I were to change one of those numbers,
Yeah,
it would actually be number 5.
the 11th loss thing.
Kind of. So I'm okay with an elimination threshold, but something I've been thinking about recently is the importance of top 8 feels almost a little overstated in a league as large as ours. And for context, with in-person tournaments, top 8s are run with as little as 16 players. And for us to put such an importance on making the top 8 when we regularly hit 100 plus players almost feels a little unfair to, the ninth, 10th player, 11th. where their achievements aren't that much worse than, say, the eighth player, right?
Okay,
And it feels almost.
yeah, I'm going to counter that a little bit. I mean, there's always going to be a cutoff, right? There will always be a cutoff.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Whether that's at
There's always a cutoff. Yeah.
whether that's at the 50% mark, like in a 16-person tournament where 8 make the top 8, or whether it's 25%, or whether it is, as it currently is now, it sits at around 10% in most tournaments, right? So the top 10% get the top 8, roughly speaking.
Right.
I don't know if there's a way around that kind of feel bad, and maybe you'd want like a higher percentile of people to play at the elite level, but at the end you can only have one winner of the tournament, right? Ultimately, so however you slice and dice it, you're going to have people that are on the outside of the envelope, and I don't know I don't really know how we can fix. Well, first of all, I don't see it as a problem, so I'm not really probably searching very hard to fix it. But if you were trying to fix it, I'm not sure how you would and still have a satisfying tournament, because we did try tournaments with no elimination system, and they sucked. They sucked all the energy out of the tournament. Like, there was no drama, there was no initiative for players to fight hard to stay in. Like, it took so much energy and vitality out of the tournament series that this was back in Dubai. The tournament series withered on the vine and died within 2 leagues. So I'm as hard a feel as it is to be on the outside of the envelope. I don't think we should get rid of the envelope. That's certainly not where I'm at design wise, and yeah.
I don't think I'd argue for that either. I think there definitely needs to be a cutoff. I just think that, at least in my opinion, that especially with the way leagues are going, and we're planning to have Modern Horizons 3, like smash our records of participants, right? That having top 8 be, like specifically the number 8, be so important in a league of this size it almost feels a little unachievable for some players, right? Like, there's been players in our
yeah. Sorry, but don't you think though that, for example, in old school in-store grinders, right? I mean, getting on the Pro Tour seemed unachievable, but they still grind. They would still try to play the PTQs and the PTQs, and they would try to work through the system to eventually get in the Pro Tour, even if it was virtually impossible. That was a pretty strong carrot, right? That was a good motivational anchor for people's play behavior, and I think that the top 8 here is nowhere near as unachievable as a Pro Tour. I think the elite nature of it actually drives a lot of energy in players' journeys to get better. And I think like my story on this server is from being like naturally quite comfortable and complacent in my magic skill, and then just getting the tar beaten out of me again and again until I realized that I have way more growth that I have to take on board before I can compete with the best on the server, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with when I do mediocre, I don't feel quite so bad either, because I know there are such strong players on the server. So I guess to your point, I'd worry that if we lower the bar too much, we're taking some of the aspirational value out of the top 8 being as hard as it is to get into. It should be an achievement, right? That you really value.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I'm not advocating for any change at the moment, but if, let's say hypothetically in the future, 3 years down the road, we get a 250 player league, right? And we're starting top 8s. There's going to be players that just are going to see that as actually impossible. They're just going to leave. It's not going to be fun and exciting. They're going to have no chance.
If we have
I think as it stands now.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I think as it stands now, it's a fine measurement. It feels achievable for a lot of players, right? We've had a lot of new players making top 8, which is awesome. But
yeah,
it's something I'd like to keep my eye on for further down the road if we do end up doubling, tripling, quadrupling in size.
Yeah, that's a big if, and if we have that problem, I'd say that's a good problem to have, right? I tell you what, when we hit 250, 300,
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll definitely revisit this issue at that time. But I do think like your the point that you just raised, right? That so many new players. I think roughly half of the current top 8, or maybe a slightly less, are new players right now. The The top seed is a brand new player, I think. Kind of makes me feel like accessibility isn't such a big issue. Even people who haven't been around long enough to really aspire are making it. So I don't know. I guess my sense has always been, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And because whenever we try to fix something in league, we make something else worse. And we got to think about. That's why I'm always the naysayer. When the committee's like, let's try this, I'm like, oh, just think about it for a second, please. Just think about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is my, as a philosopher, you always have to think about the other side of things, right? And what could your opponent say to you in a discussion that would take apart your position and make you look a fool? And I feel like with league design as well, we just have to think like 2 or 3 steps down the line. And if you can see like an edge that some player can capitalize on, or something that somebody can complain about as being unfair, or a mechanic that sucks all the air out of the tournament, then we have to. I mean, we have to kill more ideas than we germinate, unfortunately.
Yeah, and to your credit and previous league committee members' credit, the formula is great. It works. It really does. And for that to be my biggest issue with the structure of the tournament is a very good thing, because it's not even a problem right now.
Well, before, Jack, you'd said that we're looking to break records with MH3. Can you tell us a bit about the tournament-specific rule that sort of is encouraging new and returning players to jump on for MH3?
Yeah, absolutely. So our mechanic for MH3 is actually one that's not related to gameplay, but for players that are new to the league, if this is their first league, or they haven't taken part in any league in the 2024 season, so that would be starting with cons, then they'll be guaranteed to win their entry fees back as prizes. So in essence, they're getting to participate in a free league as long as they're willing to put that $10 up front.
Right, and I think that you're probably going to run the Reddit promo this coming weekend, so I would expect a lot of people on Reddit as first-time league joiners to be quite happy to have guaranteed value, guaranteed expected value out of the tournament, and I can see this being a pretty big boon to our community if it's promoted well enough. And I do like that the sole mechanic doesn't affect gameplay or matchmaking at all. It's simply the way that we award prizes, and I think that's a nice way to sort of put a mechanic in the tournament without actually putting a mechanic in the tournament.
Yeah, and on top of that, we're talking about our biggest league ever. This is the greatest set that's been put on Arena.
In terms of,
and well, right, it's there's no master sets on Arena. Arena's mostly just been standard sets since its inception, right?
right,
It started in Ixalan, right?
Ixalan.
And I think about 95% of the sets that have been in Arena have just been standard releases. And so for a set like Modern Horizons 3 to be put in Arena is huge. It's a powerful set that like a lot of players are going to be interested in playing. And I think that's also going to be a large driving number in the amount of players that are going to want to sign up. That MH3 is a cool set, to put it quite frankly. And, I'm excited for it. I'm sure a lot of players are excited to play this, very unique set that's being released on Arena.
Yeah, I think so too, and I guess that one of the arguments that was put forward with making this a largely vanilla league, right, with just the Colonel's formula, right, as the main mechanic, was that the set is going to carry a lot of complexity with it. So the gameplay is where people are going to be allocating their mental resources, not in manipulating the market with OTJ or solving mysteries in Markov Manor, right? It's going to be, is it Karlov Manor? I always get the two mixed up. It's Karlov Manor, right? Tessa Karlov. Never mind.
It's Arena really should not have, or Wizards really should not have named
It's
their
it's
manor
a
the Karlov manor.
it's a little close. It's a little close. But like I say, like
Yeah.
so the mechanics doing the lifting there were tournament mechanics, but I feel like those sets were relatively easier to just play without.
That's right.
I mean,
Yep.
you wouldn't have to think too hard, but I feel like there are so many mechanics in the set. There's like 20 plus returning mechanics. Like gameplay is going to be crunchy, and I feel like you don't want to have extra mechanics that affect matchmaking or maybe even pack selection. Might be too difficult if your brain is so focused on how your deck fits together and how gameplay proceeds.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to think about in the fact that, like you said, there's 20 plus mechanics that players are going to have to be thinking about in just on the cards themselves. And speaking from personal experience, Modern Horizons 2 is my favorite set ever. It's an amazing format to play, super unique, super complex, and I know that a lot of players never got to play Modern Horizons because it was not an arena and it was an expensive draft on paper. Um, and so to those players, I can definitely tell them from personal experience that they're in for a treat with this set. And like you said, having extra mechanics on top of that, you know, 30 whatever uh, in-game mechanics would be a lot to manage. It's tough enough even in Thunder Junction with the market and a set that's simple enough. Thunder Junction's really not that hard to play. You just play green. But with mechanics and it becomes a very interesting and unique league. And I think adding that to Modern Horizons would make it unmanageable for a lot of players
Right,
because of the complexity of the set itself.
right. So, I mean, this is going to be like if we look at like league design as sort of like trying to satisfy some sort of psychographic, right? Like Bartle's taxonomy. I guess that this league we're looking for explorers, right? People that are looking for interesting combinations of cards mostly, or the killer segment of the population, people who are going for wins specifically. There isn't a lot for players socially, right? So I think if there is any sort of point of social engagement, and we try to build those into leagues, right? These days we do anyway. Obviously, look back at, Cons is a faction league, Markov Manor, solve a mystery, and maybe talk with the community about what possible solutions to riddles might be, and OTJ, like setting up the duels, hunting people for bounties, whatever. Like there were points of engagement. I feel like if there is any built-in point of social engagement with MH3, it's probably just talking about cool interactions and cards. And I think that's going to be where most people, sort of rub elbows, and tell stories about the gameplay.
Exactly my thought. Yeah, it's. I think there's going to be a lot of talk about deck construction, neat synergies players open in their pool. I'm expecting a lot of hype moments in streamed matches from X card synergizing with X card and make some cool interaction. And I think that um, not having a mechanic that's, like you said, the clues and murders or the faction league and Concert Tarkir, not having a social element that's built into our league, again, we are relying on Modern Horizons 3 as a set to kind of do that for us.
Yeah, and
Um,
maybe the
but
community that we already have as well, right? So, our sister podcast, Hunt the Week, provides an important social function. It gets, you get to know players through John's interviews with them, right? And so that
exactly.
I think that we're going to lean on some of that hard fought and hard won infrastructure to kind of carry us across. But I ask you the following question, right? So we tied a betting mechanic to Richard's feature matches each week, and we gave some Thunderbucks for some sort of minimal advantage for guessing what player was going to win. And of course, like that's another anchor that our community has for socializing with each other. However, even in a league where we attached some mechanical weight to feature matches, they still didn't run in week five. Is what's going to happen to feature matches for Modern Horizons 3 where there's no incentive, no implicit, or intrinsics or incentive to stream?
That's right. So I actually think that um, betting it definitely helped engagement with feature matches, but I'd like to believe it also. There were some players, we've heard a lot from players saying I couldn't do a feature match because personally it didn't sit right with me that there was money on the line for it, or whatever, it's fake money, right?
For religious reasons, or presumably?
Just personal reasons. I'm not sure of
I mean,
the nature of them,
right.
but I've heard from more than one player that they chose not to participate in a feature match due to the fact that there was gambling involved in it.
I mean, we're not gambling for any real
And
stakes, though, right? So it's not actual gambling.
no,
It's fake gambling, right? It's like a
yeah, it absolutely is. But I respect their decision nonetheless.
yeah, sure.
It's something that it's I'm okay with that. If you don't want to participate in the matches because there's something on the line, that's fine.
It wasn't
Um,
required anyway, right? So
that's right.
it's
Yeah.
another optional feature, one of the many optional features that we built into Thunder Junction League. So I mean, it's good
Right.
if someone had any sort of deep moral objections to gambling. I suppose it's good that we keep those kinds
We
of
enforce them to.
yeah, we don't force you to do something immoral to win the tournament. Yeah, that would be wrong of us, right? You have to betray your
Right.
closest friend to win this tournament. It's just bad tournament design. It's a perverse incentive, right? You have to sacrifice your only son to win this league. No?
Yeah.
Step too far. Step too far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were saying about the feature matches and maybe
Yes.
gambling,
And
like, and then maybe
back.
how do we go forward? Sort of making sure that the community keeps flourishing without necessarily putting any cheese in the mousetrap to get people moving forward.
Right, and I think too with going forward to Modern Horizons 3 League with our feature matches that there will be definitely players that sign up because they have a cool deck and they want to show it off. If I've got a sick energy deck, I'm probably going to sign up. I want to get people to see it, see my cool interactions, watch me make cool plays, right? And especially with a set like Modern Horizons 3 where there's a lot more room to kind of show your deck building strength and your synergy that you built into your deck. I'd like to think that that's going to be a driving factor for players to participate in feature matches.
Yeah, just autobiographically, in Thunder Junction League, I did so many feature matches. One, because I wanted the feature matches to launch, and Richard has a kind of interesting all or nothing, like either I get six people or the whole thing falls apart kind of policy. I mean, it's his show.
Right.
He can make that call. But I wanted to make sure that we had quorum each week, so I put my hat in the ring for that reason as TO, just to make sure things fired, right? But also, autobiographically, I wanted to show off the cool decks I had going. So I had some darn cool decks. They weren't ever, I think, powerful or consistent enough to get me to top eight. But I did want to, strut a little bit, and it's nice to have a historical record on YouTube of the matches you played, and to hear Richard plus whoever's commenting with him at the times, views on how the match is going. It does help you, I think, become a better player to hear them, analyze your moves and to try to guess where your head's at with deck construction or a certain line of play that you're contemplating. So I think all those are good things. And for me, right, I didn't really feel bad sharing the secrets of my deck builds because one, they were changing so frequently, and two, because I really didn't hold any hope that I was going to make top eight. I figured I was going to finish in the top half, and that's about as good as it got. So I think like as long as there are people like me who are in that position, right, where you want to show your cool things off, you're not too worried about giving away some sort of strategic advantage by showcasing your deck. and you have this kind of interest in learning more about yourself as a player and maybe even leaving a legacy on YouTube, I guess there will always be at least a few players that step up into the ring and make themselves available for posterity to be filmed.
Yeah, myself included. And it's right. First of all, I think Richard and his commentators, they do a great job.
Oh yeah, for sure,
It's
top notch.
and it and like you were saying, the commentary, with Raph usually in the booth too. It's two amazing players, right? Richard and Raph are both great players, and it is very insightful to get their commentary, even if it is lighthearted and they're not taking a serious dive into your deck construction, every little detail. But just getting feedback from a couple of players like that, it's 100% helpful. It definitely is nice to get their take on things, even if they're only seeing one match being played, right?
Yeah, it goes as deep as it needs to go. So I guess maybe I've answered my own question or allayed my own fears by talking this out with you. Like I think that there's probably enough inherently going on with the community socially that we don't necessarily need every league at least to build in some sort of mechanic. But one thing I did kind of worry about is like since we're planning to onboard so many new players from the Reddit push, usually when we have this kind of big recruitment drive, we have a faction league or we have a team league in mind where you have somebody ready to take the new players under their wing, whether that's a con or a college dean or a Don in New Capenna, somebody who takes that leadership role and is who puts some of their extra time into making sure everybody feels oriented and comfortable. We don't have that in MH3, so I guess maybe that's part of what motivated my concern about the lack of a community engagement mechanic. But what do you think of that, Jack?
So that actually ties into something I wanted to mention as well, which is our buddy system.
Right.
Um,
Good.
I believe we started in Murders. Credit to Dan for the idea, but the buddy system I think has been an amazing inclusion to the league. Even speaking from personal experience, I mentored Alexis and Murders, and not only did I think it gave him a very good introduction to our tournament, but I made a great friend. It's it goes both ways, and I think having that resource of hey, new players, would you like to be buddied up with an experienced player? They'll show you around, introduce you to the community. I think it's great for introducing new players to our tournament system, which might seem daunting at first. And speaking from personal experience, when I joined, I didn't know my way around. I didn't know anyone. I was pretty much quiet for the entire Lord of the Rings league.
Well, you didn't like it
kind of
anyway. You're probably hating the set so much that you were just
well, that's part of it. Yeah.
just fuming.
And just this is obviously not a huge sample size, but every single player we had for Murders that did the buddy system came back for one of the next two leagues.
Ah, that's interesting.
And I think that's really a sign of how successful this system is, and how great it is for these new players to get onboarded to this tournament we've designed.
Yeah. So maybe the buddy system could be. I mean, it is something we're just kind of doing with every registration now. So it is already sort of embedded in the system. It's not formal, but as you point out, it doesn't need to be, right? I think that what you're describing, the relationship that you built with Alexis, is probably what I had with John P. when he joined in Strixhaven, right? And he joined Lorehold, and I was the dean at the time, and I was, of course, as always, doing terribly in the standings, but John was doing great. He was the champion of the college, and so I was rooting him on, and I think he's reported, several times that was sort of a key moment for him to sort of like get out of his shell, engage with the community, and if we can do that without going through the making big factions, I think that's a great thing. Yeah, so yeah, that was Dan, was it, that put that suggestion forward?
Yep.
So
And
yeah,
I would definitely encourage anyone that is even remotely interested. You know, you don't have to be a great player. You can look at my records; they're not good. Um, but even if you know you've been here a couple leagues, you kind of know your way around. Sign up. You know, it honestly is. It's a lot of fun getting to show a new player around the tournament. You kind of feel like you big and mighty. You know, you feel smart, and it's great for the community to introduce that new player to what we have going on.
well, I think with that very positive note, and exhortation for our members to our established members to volunteer as buddies. I think that we're pretty much ready to wrap up the inaugural episode of Leagues Ahead. Unless you wanted to add anything, Jack, do you have any final comments?
No, I think I've mentioned everything I've wanted to say.
Well, then, thank you for joining me today, and I couldn't think of a better guest with which to launch this new series. So here's looking forward to MH3, and many thanks for being here today. I'm looking forward to playing the set. I'm looking forward to having a pretty easy ride as TO and LC, so we can maybe make Bloomborough the big, gorgeous, messy, flavorful jamboree in the forest that we know it's going to be. So I think in a way we're giving ourselves two leagues of design space so that Bloomborough is really something special, right? We can discuss that later on in the next leagues ahead, but not to spoil it too much, but we've got some pretty special things lined up for Bloomborough. And I think that MH3 is going to be a crunchy, complex play experience that's going to satisfy most everybody who loves Magic and who's been in the game for long enough to recognize at least five of the mechanics.
Right. Yeah. Of course. Thanks for having me on. It's been great getting to talk to you about our upcoming league. Stay tuned for Bloom Barrow. We'll be back.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jack.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.